Coming up this week on Success Won't Come Calling. Hello friends, welcome to the podcast. Simon Gibson here. The podcast is SWCC. Hope you're all well. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favour. There's a subscribe button which you're going to see right now. Please just give it a click and become one of the following, and you will be glad you're here today because my guest this week is Marcel Sorry, mate.
I was about to introduce myself because I thought you'll mess it up.
Sorry.
Marcel Vormawah Jonas. But don't worry, you're not the first.
I'm not, but I was absolutely cool with the first and the second. It's just I didn't find out until today that your surname was double-barrelled.
Yeah.
So fair enough.
It's quite a long one, so yeah. I will let it go.
Hey, you've got me out of jail there, mate. You really have. Mate, I've been checking out all of your Instagram page, and I've got to say you're in phenomenal shape.
I mean, yeah, not right now. I mean, anything you see now is an older photo, so I could say I'm a catfish of sorts at the present moment. But yeah,
well, on the
being through some things
on the photo on your main Instagram pic, you look like. Marvel have been training you to fight Iron Man in the next movie. Is there any truth in that?
Right now, I can't say that there is, no. But you know what? Something could come of it in the future.
Well, if the money was right, would you consider it?
Which, a career in acting?
Yeah, smashing Iron Man in a film.
Too late. I've had a career in acting before.
Oh, have you?
Short-lived, yeah.
Did you fight any superheroes?
No, I was actually a small child in a youth hostel as a kid. But I was credited in a film, yeah.
And what film was it?
It's actually called It was released, I don't know why, there's two names to it. It was released initially, it was called My Beautiful Son. And then I think the actual release that it got is Strange Relations.
And is it still out there?
Yeah, you can go and buy it. And yeah, I don't know why anybody would. But and it's from around 20 years ago. We filmed it, I think, I'm sure, 1999 or 2000. It's one of those things.
And were you like thinking of going into that, like into showbiz then?
Well, it was always what I'd done as a child, believe it or not. Like the whole dance, drama, singing. I'd done all that, and now, regrettably, I stopped. I got to that age. There's like a short period of time where you actually care what people think about you. And I wanted to go out with mates and do nothing off a weekend. And say when I was around 13, 14, I cared that people were like, haha, you go to dancing, or... Not that I could dance. Anyone who knows me now is probably looking, thinking, probably for the best that you stopped it. But yeah, I did actually stop everything that I'd done. I'd done like plays in the Empire and then like other theatre productions and stuff. I say the one film that I'd done, I was credited on.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, whilst you now, you're a medal-winning bodybuilder, and it's very different to dance and obviously acting, but there's this performance element to it as well as the athletic element. Is that something which...
100%. This is something I've always told. I was told early on with the bodybuilding was like stage presence. And if you've ever seen bodybuilding footage and they kind of pan across a line of athletes or competitors... A lot of people look like they don't want to be on there. And I've never understood it because you go through so much hard work to kind of stand on stage as though you really, you're not enjoying any minutes of this. And if you've seen any of the footage of me up on stage, it's like a running joke now every time. Doesn't matter what photo it is, the smile that comes with every single pose, the smile's got to go with it. One, because again, stage presence, but it really passes off. It's hard work up there. You're underneath these lights. Energy-wise, you're at your worst, even though you look your best. And I'm kind of passing off what should be like a pained, struggling face. I pass it off with a smile.
Well, you do. I mean, the work I've seen of you on stage just looks phenomenal. But I mean, it's always comes across to me as a funny sport, bodybuilding, because...
Oh, it's a strange one. Absolutely.
You're up on the stage and you're being assessed on the basis of the end game to lots of hard work rather than the hard work itself. So they're not watching you lift weights and that sort of thing.
Well, this is the thing in general. I think even most people in and around the whole fitness bodybuilding world will never see somebody else's struggle. So like the low points of it, which can be low. I've been through some rough times with it. It's not all just like tan and going from A to B to C to this gym and meeting this person and that person and getting on stage and it's all glitz and glamour. There's a lot of rough parts. I'd say it's 90% of it's probably mentally very hard.
Well, that occurred to me. I was going to ask you actually, is it quite a lonely sport?
It can be. It depending on, it's weird, depending on how good you want to be at it. Now, if you're willing to put yourself through hell to be the best, it's kind of one of those things where the worse you feel, the better you usually are. So yeah, I've been through some lonely, this year being probably one of the worst with the lockdown added on top of it, yeah.
Yeah. And you got injured recently as well, because I saw that on Instagram. Did you tweak your back or something?
Yeah, around a month ago now. It's 95% back to where it should be now. I've started lifting towards the heavier side of things again, but yeah.
Because you actually posted, didn't you, the video where you tweaked your back?
Yeah, and then I stupidly done one more rep.
I know. Well, yeah. Everyone check it out. Check out Marcel's Instagram page anyway, team, because it's the way you actually post your lifting is so interesting. I mean, on this one, you're doing a deadlift, and there's about 5 20-kilogram plates. Are they 20?
620s on each side.
On each side. Yeah. And basically, you get to your second rep, and it wasn't even clear to me that you'd done anything, but then the third one, you could see you kind of shaking.
It was a weird one, because I've done that weight. The weight was an issue, and on that particular day, I'll always know ahead of time I'm going to have a good day today. And I went in, and I'd like the music. The lad who I was training with, actually, is a very good lad to train with, and there's a couple of videos, if you've seen on there, and he kind of slapped before, and he screamed, and he's just dead motivating to train with.
Is that why he's doing it then, is he, to motivate you?
Yeah, it's just before you said you've got to be in the right kind of... And like we had the music was loud, and I was just in a good spot. Lifted it, and it felt easy, and in my mind straight away I thought, 10 reps, no problem. Done the first one and thought, yeah. Second one and just went, oh shit. And then in that split second, which obviously you don't see on it, I was like, do you know what? I'm here now, fucking, I'm going to do a third. Yeah. And then that was where I sort of like stalled at the bottom, brought it up again, shook the whole way, dropped it, and just went, oh no. And I knew straight away.
And what's it like the day after that then? Because
it was the night of it. I went home, sat there, I'm sounding like a little snob now, sat there in my jacuzzi, but like I sat there, I had the jet.
Are you sure you're not working for Marvel? I'm convinced.
I had the jets on, I thought, I'm just going to chill out and I'm going to do nothing. So I put the jets on, and like the tap is halfway. So it's not like I had to reach, I literally didn't move about 2 hours. I had the tap on, as soon as it was getting cold, more hot, didn't move, stood up and thought I've got away with this by some miracle. Went down, iced it. Everything was fine. Sat on the end of the bed, picked my phone up, must have sent a message or something, put the phone down and went. And literally couldn't move, to the point where I actually just had to call, like the day was done, I lay there with the towel on and went asleep. I went like that to put like boxies on. I couldn't lift my leg to get them on. So I had to lay there and go to sleep. That day was...
And how to, when you, because obviously you were lifting a lot then. When you've got to go into that recovery period, when you've got an injury like that, what does that mean to you in terms of having to rebuild after you return to the gym?
It was just basically take it easy. Don't try and run before you can walk, sort of thing. The same sort of stuff I was doing, but lightweights and boring stuff, just kind of going through the motions of it and aiming to just feel a bit of weight rather than really pushing anything.
And how quickly after that were you back then?
I didn't miss any training. That happened the Friday. I didn't actually, I tell a lie, I didn't train the Saturday where I normally would have. The Saturday, the Sunday, it was a bit of a lazy weekend. And then from the Monday, I trained again as normal, but it was only really towards the end of the following week when I'd come to train either legs or back. It was an issue then.
Right.
So yeah, even to this point now, I've only really been training at like 60%.
Right, got you.
But sort of, I know I'm ready to get back to it now. We're
going to talk about you getting back to it in a little while, but you mentioned tough times earlier. I've got a tough time coming up right now. We do guest rider on the podcast. We drink whatever the guest wants. And when we started doing the podcast, I was absolutely committed to whatever a guest wanted to drink. I was going to do it. I hadn't anticipated this. So Stacey's going to actually do this live on the recording. Yeah. But Marcel, what have you got us drinking? Tell us the story, man.
So, well, put it simply, chicken breast and water blended. Now, the story behind it, do you know what? It's worse than it sounds. That's the bad thing about him.
I'm so excited to see Simon drink it.
I'm looking forward to it. I wasn't. He put 2 glasses out and now I'm kind of, oh, shit.
No seasoning, no flavour. The best thing is we've got a Tesco special blender and I don't think it's going to hack the chicken, so it might go on fire.
Let's just keep, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think I prefer a fire drill to drinking it.
So what actually happened, again, with this thing of once I'm prepping for the show, doesn't matter whether I'm going out anywhere, I will take my food with me. And there's been so many situations before I've been on nights out. I've left the club, walked to my car, sat there at a meal and gone back in like nothing. Really? Yeah, because obviously I have set things to do each day. It's basically ticking boxes and I have to do them. So on this particular morning, I got up and I'd had so much food cooked and it was the last of the food before I went and done my shop. I don't know if any of you have ever had chicken that's either overcooked or it's just the consistency of the chicken's not nice.
It's too chicken.
Chewy.
Yeah.
No, but chewy and it's really rubbery.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And especially when it's cold like that, bearing in mind I'm doing this day in, day out. So I've come to eat it and I was just like, do you know when you chew food? But I think when you're not well, I'm chewing the food, but I can't swallow it. And I thought, I can't eat a whole meal like this. The easy thing to do is to put it in the blender. So the chicken went in with a bottle of water and the smell of it. Basically, it looks like sick. It tastes like sick.
Just start doing it.
And it smells like
sick. I need to get this over with.
But at least you know what you're getting into. I didn't, and then I balked and I had to just get on with it.
Well, I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you was why not just eat the chicken and drink the water, but you've answered that because it was too dry. I mean,
okay, so we've got some lovely chicken.
Is there any nutritional benefit to eating it this way?
No,
Does like the protein get into your system quicker or anything like that?
As far as I'm aware, it's exactly the same as if you were to have eaten it. That wasn't the reason for it. It was just I couldn't physically. I'd have been sat there for 40 minutes just trying to eat food that I didn't want to eat. Yeah. So it's easier to just.
How much water did we do?
I'd probably put the bottle in.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'd be all right with the bottle.
Did you ever used to make trick or treat years ago when it was like on Halloween when you used to like make it look like sick with all the pumpkin stuff? This is what I feel like.
Do you reckon we could stop talking about sick for a bit?
Because he's going to be sick.
Hey,
where's Anton Deck? Hey.
Right, let's hope we've got this right.
I hope it works. Okay. I hope that lid's on as well.
Oh my dear Lord.
Basically, it's a chicken milkshake, isn't it? Oh dear, oh dear.
Right. That'll be all right, that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine now.
There's a sick bag here.
Is there anything you don't have in the studio, Jacob? Seriously?
He's come prepared.
Jesus fucking Christ! I'm not drinking all that.
Just no, but before you drink it, smell it.
Right.
Okay, have a little sniff.
Good idea.
Oh my dear.
You kind of got to get the message across. So yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice.
It's disgusting.
Oh! Let's just get over it. Let's get it done. I can't see me drinking all of it. Honest to God,
You've got a big old swig.
These bodybuilders.
It's a bit chunky as well.
No, it's all right.
That's enough for it. That's, you know what? I'd be impressed if you. No, you don't have to do that.
Listen, it's called Gastrada. Yeah. I think he was just having it on, and just thought this will be a laugh to see.
It was fun and games until I realised that.
That is utterly horrific. Jesus. Oh, man. I can't drink no more of that. I'll be honest with you.
Come on, you've done the whiskey. Come on.
No, I can't.
That's not done. All right, y'all. I'll drink mine. If you finish this drink for him, I'll drink mine. No, you're not. I'll just watch you eat the other chicken. If you finish that, I'll have mine.
I'm going to have one more sip and that's it.
You've got to finish it. I'll finish that.
How much are you going to pay me if I have a go at this?
Stace, please get it away.
There's no chance I'm going to drink it otherwise.
In front of the camera, Stace, go there's Simon's camera.
Right, okay.
Go on.
I'll have one swig.
Yeah,
that is rough.
It's not nice, is it?
No.
Oh my dear Lord. It's the consistency.
It's like, do you see what I mean about the sick thing?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's horrid.
Did John May leave any of his Jaeger here?
Where's your Jaeger, mate?
But the point I hope it came across with that is I couldn't eat, I'll be honest, I can't drink that.
No.
But at the time, I finished it. And there was a lot more than that. There was probably about a pint of it. And it was a case of like, pinch your nose, go with it, walk, carry on. And yeah, it's kind of one of those things. This is like one of these dark sides. I wasn't about to film myself trying to drink it for Instagram. But there's a rough side, there's a downside to it, as well as all the success that you see.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Because, I mean, what we talk about on the podcast is succeeding through challenge. And you are, I mean, that was a challenge. I mean, I had 2 fucking slips of it. Let's talk about the life of a bodybuilder, mate. First of all, I should say firstly, this is an CC first, because you're not the first Jonas we've had on here. Natasha, who's a boxer, has already been on. She was fantastic. And you're from a remarkable family, to be fair.
There's a fair few of us who do.
Well, your mum and dad both were competing bodybuilders, were they?
Yeah. Well, no, I would love for them to have one more go, but as much as I've tried to convince them of this, I think they're just at a point now where they know the work that goes into it and they'd rather enjoy the life.
Yeah, I don't blame them. But although you had the inspirations around you then when you were young to do this, when was the moment when you thought to yourself, I want to bodybuild as seriously?
I would have been I was training 14, 15, 16. I'd made a little bit of progress. At the time, obviously, I thought I was massive. I was probably about 11 stone, to put it into perspective. And I'd improved, but I never had any abs. I always said, love to have a 6-pack. And then understood, got to grips with like how the food, how the whole eating well thing works. And you had to do that in order to change how you look. Food is usually the thing most responsible for how you look. So the idea of, I'd dieted down a little bit, and then the idea of, why don't you have a show come up? It was actually my uncle who said, have a little, because we'd always gone to the shows as spectators, as you say, to see other lads or women in the gym who were competing. I'd seen my mum, my dad on stage. So yeah, he put the idea to us, and obviously at that point, I never understood the hard work involved. So I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I was doing everything in terms of, I was eating well anyway, I was training, I was basically doing all the elements, but at a level that's enjoyable. It was just kind of, I was eating, I was growing, I was improving, I'd go to the gym a few times a week. I never understood, obviously, the work and how much you had to step it up in order to be competitive.
And how, you mentioned diet there. In fact, let's take a step back. You mentioned competing.
Yeah.
I know that the thing which really interests me about your career is you have had a couple of breaks as you moved along. But in the time when you've been competing frequently, what does a year look like? How many competitions are you involved in?
I try not to do too many. I've learned that lesson the hard way. In 2018, I tried to do too many shows in one, in success right after each other. And by the time I got to the end, I'd fell out of interest with it. I wasn't that bothered, and I didn't give a good account of myself. And to this day, it annoys me because I've only ever brought my best to the stage, and I know I could have been better.
And when you in the lead up to a competition, how does your diet change, or does your diet change?
Yeah, the food is basically the number one thing that will take you from looking like an everyday person to the photos that you'd see posted on stage over on my Instagram.
Well, a couple of things. I don't think you do look like an everyday person. I mean, I think you're being very modest there, Marcel.
It's what I'm used to seeing. It's not something where anyone would go, oh my God. Whereas if I was sat here now, say a couple of days out before the show, it would probably have that wow, because it's not something you see every day. It is a little bit out the ordinary to see somebody like that in the flesh. And I've always said, photos don't do something like that justice on like the level of condition that somebody would be in. Not many people get to see that in front of them. And also the size of somebody, well, some of the bigger lads, how big that actually is in person. And if you ever get to witness that, it's an experience in itself, because
it's quite eye-opening.
It's
quite unique.
Yeah, photos don't do it justice.
So in terms of diet then, on a lead up to a show, are you heavily focusing on protein?
It's that, well, the protein side of it pretty much stays consistent. In short, or in simple terms, what I do, I will set a diet plan. So I coach myself. Up until this point anyway, I coach myself, especially this year. I will set a plan and the protein will stay very, very consistent. The two things that I would alter based on how it was needed would be carbs and fats.
And would you reduce your fat, presumably, do you?
I would. Well, mostly for me, it is carbs. I work well, unfortunately, on very low carbs.
Right.
Which is probably where the whole walking around very lethargic, lack of energy comes from. People don't understand the importance of food. So when you see people talking on things like these fad diets, and you hear people say, oh yeah, I'm having no carbs, and I will always shoot someone down on that, because that's not a good idea. You need to have a balance of everything.
And are you in that scenario then, are you aiming just to sort of prioritise your leafy greens and that sort of thing? And
that's something I would always have in anyway. I would never cut them out, because obviously there is a place for them, especially when your body's deficient in enough things, which on a diet that restricted, it really is. To put it, I could give you some kind of insight without being bored and be like, meal one, I have the kind of foods I would be eating from, say, maybe 10 weeks out would only really include rice, porridge oats, chicken, steak, greens, water, and I drink black coffee because it's a break from water. But other than that, there's probably not much eggs, some fruit, banana maybe, but other than that, that's probably the only foods I would eat.
But you've got everything there, haven't you? You've got some fat, you've got high protein in terms of your steak and your chicken.
You say that, but then imagine this is split over 7 meals.
Oh, like you're eating
and that's every day. So I've probably only listed 7 foods there.
Yeah.
And you're having these foods 7 days of the week. It doesn't seem, if I say 6 weeks, 6 weeks comes and goes like that. But when you're living in the moment and you try and think ahead 6 weeks from now, 6 weeks is a horribly long time to hate what you're doing in a second.
And is it that, in terms of, do you not particularly enjoy that diet then?
I've learned to, because I'm at a point now where I think nobody but me is making me do it to this level. So I may as well I can either hate it and then every second becomes like a chore, or I can think, do you know what? You're putting yourself through this, enjoy it. And even I wouldn't outright say I enjoy doing it, because you've only got to see what it involves to be like, there's no way you'd have to be insane to enjoy that. But I enjoy the results of the process, so I understand I've got to go through the process in order to get them results.
It's interesting because you can apply that really positive mentality to virtually any challenge. Life's not supposed to be easy. And when you've got a goal to aim for, whether that's financial, whether it's professional, whether it's in terms of your health, whether it's in terms of your relationships, whatever it is, if you move into a situation where you're looking to hit a goal, it would be very strange if you could do that through very little effort and very little sacrifice.
I don't think the goal would be worth it. It wouldn't seem worthwhile. Quite often I've learned, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in their respective field can relate to it. You don't realise it at the time, but quite often you do enjoy the journey more, or the process, more than the actual end goal. Quite often I find an end goal is a bit of an anticlimax, and then I find myself chasing that same end goal just to experience the whole process again.
Let's come to that in a bit. I'm really interested by that comment you made on Anticlimax. I just want to explore that. But tell me about the training aspect of preparing for a competition, for a show. How does your training differ? Are you lifting heavier weights? Are you doing less reps?
It gets to a point of essentially what you're doing, you're trying to do the most whilst your food is at the, your energy levels, your food, everything is as low as it's going to be, which is tough. This year, for example, every single day I would have been up at 6 a.m. I would do either Sefton Park once round, so about 2.5 miles, or I was doing a particular stretch of Otterspool along the front when the weather wasn't bad. No, just it's a fast-paced walk.
Oh, okay.
Where you're sort of aiming to be a little bit out of breath,
yeah,
but not sweating buckets. I would do that. I was straight to the gym. I would do 35 minutes on a Stairmaster, and then I was doing my weight session. Doesn't sound like a lot probably to some people, but then the whole lockdown thing, I was doing that in an empty gym because the gym was shut.
You've got it. Your family owns
the gym.
It's
our gym, yeah. So I was letting myself into an empty building.
Yeah.
And that in itself was that was depressing because you're walking into somewhere where, under the usual circumstances, everyone's interested. When you've got a show coming up, everybody's interested because, as I say, what you're doing is a little bit different. And everybody, even though at times it's kind of like you feel you're repeating yourself, everyone asks the same questions. But then when you're going into a building and no one cares because no one's there, no one even knows you're doing it, it's like, right, okay.
It makes it tougher.
I've got to now come out with the same level of energy and motivation as if there's all kinds of people watching me. And it's that quiet, you can hear it, everything echoes, and you're like, I'm really on my own.
When you're just going back to your training, obviously with something like the fast-paced walking and the Stairmaster, you're burning significant calories there on what I would think of as like cardio. How do you track them? And are you looking to burn more calories than you're taking in, or is it level it out?
Yeah, you're putting yourself into a prolonged calorie deficit.
Right.
The way I would track it, or the way I always have tracked it, a lot of it, so I would use, and I always say this with people that I train as well, I use multiple ways. Basically, first and foremost, but this is one thing with competition level that does go out the window, it's how you feel up here. If you feel shit in your own mindset, there is no point in putting yourself through a diet, because to feel great with how you look but feel terrible up here, what is the point? You've got to feel good within your own self, within your own mindset. Secondary to that, yeah, it's usually if somebody's doing a diet or following something, it's based on how you look. But then as well as that, and equally as important, what the scales are telling you. But people seem to place too much emphasis on that. People will, have a great week in their own self, feel great. I've had a dead positive week. I've, smashed it. I've done this, that and the other. Get on the scales, and because they don't like what they see now, they're letting them numbers dictate how they feel. And now all of a sudden, the great week is irrelevant. So I try not to put too much focus on that. I will with myself because I understand why I'm doing it. But then with other people, that's not always. Other people will, take what the scales say as being like the be all and end all, as well as that, how your clothes fit. And other people's comments, even though I'm doing what I'm doing, and people will speak without thinking a lot of the time. So I could be, halfway through a diet and someone will say, fucking hell, you've lost weight. Now at that point, that's the last thing I want to hear, because you're doing something that's all about building yourself up.
Yeah.
And someone's saying, you've lost weight, and you think, shit, am I too small? And you start to doubt yourself. I've learned kind of to block that out. But at the same time, imagine walking up to somebody and saying, oh my God, you've put weight on. People wouldn't do that, but it's kind of like, with what we do, people are very, very open and honest with their perception or criticism of it.
So in your view, if someone does want to burn fat, and that when people talk about losing weight, that's quite often what they mean. They want to get a lower body mass index.
Yes.
Do you think it's focus on your calorie deficit, then maybe photograph comparisons plus how your clothes fit, rather than what the scales are saying?
Yeah, the scales, if anything, more for other people than myself, are probably the least important of those things. You could look at the scale, you could feel great. Now, if you look at the scales and it says 15 stone, okay, great. But if you look and see 10 stone, would you feel any differently about that? Do you know what I mean? And then people would obviously let that alter how they feel. Essentially, you're putting yourself into a calorie deficit, and it's being able to maintain that, Because don't forget, I could say to you now, right, there's a diet plan going started tomorrow. You have your first few meals. Now, from the point where you started that, you're dieting. But at the beginning, you haven't, nor are you actually seeing any results. So it's quite hard to get to grips with it first. And people will say, I've done, three days now and I haven't lost anything. Now, it's the sort of thing, it takes 2 or 3 weeks for your body to adjust. If you've been...
To know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you've lived under certain
habits
for so long, you're not going to undo them in a couple of days. So it's actually sticking with it to the point where you start to see results. That's usually the hardest bit with people.
It is, and the problem I've had in the past, about a year ago, I went on keto, and I did quite well with it, but it's not sustainable.
No, and this is the thing as well. Fad diets are always pushed and promoted over hard work. So that I will often get questions, I need to lose this, or I've got this, I've tried this, I've taken this, what do you reckon? And the honest answer, and it will always stand, is that you cannot beat hard work and a good, consistent, well-balanced diet.
And in terms of that calorie deficit, I've heard different views on this. I've heard some people say that you should limit the calorie deficit to sort of maybe 500 calories a day because of the risk of your body going into like a starvation mode and trying to keep hold of fat.
I thought you meant then not having more than 500 calories in a day.
No,
I was going to say.
The deficit.
Yeah, you wouldn't get very far on that.
No.
There'd be no solid answer. So, for example, I could show you my diet plan and say, go away and do that. You're not going to get the same results.
No.
And neither is anybody else. It's literally very person specific. I'm sure you'll know somebody who eats shit, who's in Mackey's every other day, but they're in shape. And I'm sure equally you'll know someone who probably isn't happy with how they look, who probably gains weight very, very easily, but actually has a good go when they're in the gym and they're trying, and they're not eating out all the time, but they actually struggle, whereas some people have only got to walk past the gym and seem to grow. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's very person specific.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it does resonate with me what you're saying about a diet, doing something like a very low carb diet for a month. You will lose weight.
You'll lose weight, but you'll be miserable.
And also that if it's not sustainable, you will bang it straight back on.
Yeah, that's the thing with it as well. It's got to be something you can basically take on into your everyday life and make it sustainable over a long term, because nobody's ever going to break a diet and then get back on it the next day. Someone's going to, if you put someone on something that's too harsh, too strict, the first thing people do is say, fuck this, do you know what? I can't be arsed with it. And they'll completely fall off the wagon. And then it'll be, I'll just start next week.
Next Monday.
And I'll just, I get it now. I've had a couple of people who've said, I'm going to get back in with you. I'm going to start with you, but I'm just going to get Christmas out the way first. And I'm looking at that thinking, that's 7 weeks wasted, because it won't be Christmas and it won't be New Year. It'll be once you've found your work and life balance, 2-3 weeks into January. And I look and I think you could be 2 months underway by then.
Do you know what I mean? But when this episode comes out, we're going to be nearly at Christmas. But what I'm doing, and I did this last year as well, is I'm going to work as hard in the gym and be as consistent with diet as I possibly can be between now and Christmas Eve. Yeah. And then if you have a few days where you just enjoy yourself,
that's it,
and then get back to it, it takes the New Year resolution off the table. You're just getting back to consistency.
The idea of a New Year's resolution when it comes to diet is nobody's ever actually had one and stuck to it, because this is one thing I actually always say with people, and a lot of people can answer this themselves. When it comes to dieting, you either want it or you like the idea of it. And most people like the idea of it, because when it actually comes to putting in a little bit of hard work, making a little bit of sacrifice, saying no to this plan, or, not just giving in at the first hurdle, a lot of people will fold. A lot of people like the idea of it. They ain't willing, they don't want it, because if you really want it, you don't make excuses.
Do you know what? It's such a great point, and it's one I'm going to really try and take on board, because I think the other thing with me is that I'm carrying too much fat, but I'm going to put it, it's not like I'm in a situation where I'm putting my body at immediate jeopardy. That kind of risk factor doesn't feel like it's there. But
in terms of what though? So when you say the risk factor,
well, I mean, if you're carrying a level of weight which your organs just can't properly operate under that amount of stress, then you're clearly and scientifically causing yourself physiological harm. If you're just not fitting into your shirts the way you'd like to, that risk factor doesn't appear to be there. I'm not saying it's not, but that's certainly, I think, what holds me back.
But then are you going to leave it till it gets to that point?
Well, that's right.
Not that I'm not saying, you're not on like this self-destructive like path now where you're headed towards it. But what I mean is, why would you wait, or why would you allow that to be the thing that motivates you? Do you know what I mean? You should look at it now and say, right, well, this applies to anybody. Would I be happier if? And if the answer is yeah, then go and get it.
Well, There's
no point in living anything less than happy.
That is the point, isn't it? Because if it is something like you want to look good in your shirts or your dresses, if you're motivated by how you look and by things like compliments, by things like your photo comparisons and that sort of thing, then you've got a happy time ahead, because if you commit to achieving that, you will get lots of good stuff. So that's real positives. It's how you feel. You'll feel more motivated. You'll have more energy. You'll get sick less. You'll have more mental energy as well as physical energy.
There's no real negatives that I can think of, other than maybe saying no to a couple of midweek plans that you don't really need. Well, you can still do. But it's like I've had people in who are like, this week's not going to be a good one. I'm out on this day and I've got to drink it. And I'm like, you haven't got to, you're choosing to. Go out and enjoy it. Even, have your meal or whatever, but it doesn't have to be an all-out binge. It's basically about making educated choices, which I will always help somebody to do, rather than thinking, do you know what, I've got a night out, so let's not diet this week.
Sorry to interrupt this amazing podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by my friends at Good To Go Recovery. And here it is here, and it is the ultimate recovery drink. You've got lemon, you've got apple, you've got cherry, and I use Good To Go after I've finished working out. My wife likes it first thing in the morning. And the reason for that is that it's proven to hydrate you faster than water. It's packed with vitamins, electrolytes, and minerals, and it contains no sugar or caffeine. So if you, like me, have parts of the day when you need to reboot your mind or supercharge your body, then Good To Go Recovery is the drink for you. And get this, friends, you can order via their website or their Instagram channels. And if you quote the code SWCC10, you get 10% off all of your orders. Not your first order, but all of your orders. Can you believe it? So that is Good To Go Recovery, which is your ultimate recovery drink. And now it's back to the podcast.
Do you know what? After the last couple of weeks, I haven't been at 100% through various, just like sometimes life just gets in the way. And I used to follow the thing of a cheat day, but again, that for me just was like 24 hours of chaos. I used to binge even if I didn't want to eat, just for the sake of it was always a Sunday. It was always a Sunday. So I tried to bring it back to a cheat meal, and then I was doing the same thing but trying to condense it within like a 1 hour window. And I've made myself absolutely ill. And I mean, I've lay there dying on the couch with a stomach out here. So I've found, this will sound mad, but like the word cheat, it creates a bad relationship with food, which is something that no one on any level should be aiming to do. So even though it's only a change of words, I would always refer to it as like an off-plan meal or like a refeed meal or something like that.
Or like an achievement because you've been so...
Yeah, so I would say to somebody, look, if there's your diet plan, stick to that 7 days a week, but once a week, go and have an off-plan meal and make that fit in with your lifestyle. So say, for example, you want to take your girl out of a weekend, go to wherever it is you want, but your first 4 meals of the day, get them in as normal on your plan. But then you'll grow to look forward to the meal in the evening.
If you work out, if you smash your water and all that sort of thing, then it becomes less of an off-plan thing, doesn't it? It's just a slight deviation.
What usually ends up happening is once people then put that level of energy into it and see a bit of a change and start to see results, they understand. Like, a lot of people will get to when they're like, I don't really want to go for that because I feel like I'm undoing my hard work.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying, no, like, go out and have that. Whereas at first, it's a battle to get someone to stick to it. I end up having to say to people, no, like, go and have that meal, enjoy yourself.
What about a bit of sneaky wine from time to time?
Well, same, but you've got to make it fit your life, so it can't be. I've just had, funnily enough, and I could imagine she probably watched this as well. I've had this with one of my clients who loved a drink. She wasn't an alcoholic, by the way. That sounds terrible. She loved it, but she used to enjoy drinking, and her drink is brandy, and she drank quite a bit. And she used to always say, "There's no way I'll give that up." She's just had a drink last weekend, and it's the first time this year.
Oh, wow.
And she's just done a full 10 months, and honest to God, if she can do it, anyone can do it.
I need to do it. I think my mental health will be much better as well.
You probably find you just set yourself little small goals, so you wouldn't say, I'm not going to drink for a year because I know you're going to fail that.
Yeah.
But what you would say is, and a lot of people do dry January anyway, I wonder if I could actually have a good go with that. And if no one close to you's got a birthday in January, chance yours.
I'll do it in February.
See, you're already putting it back now. But you could say, do you know what? I'll see if I can have a go with that. Yeah. And then you do it. Obviously, the month comes and goes. You probably find then you're going to try and search for other ways to occupy your time. If your weekend is you go out, for example, if you were to go out every Saturday, what a lot of people do, and I do this not for the drinking side of things, but I go out on a Sunday morning on, if you get on my Instagram, all mad walk. We started out walking, it became climbs. This is a very Scouse thing at the minute, if you know. Everyone gets out on the walks.
Right. Everyone's a fell walker.
And it's funny, we've been up some mad walks and you will see no one for half an hour, and the first people you come across, it's happening, lad. And it'll be a Scouser.
Oh, they've got a big boombox on the back.
Yeah, but that's normally us as well. We've been told off for that as well.
We have as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, because obviously we've talked there about the level of commitment you need to make, both from a dietary perspective and also from a training perspective to succeed as a bodybuilder. When you are at the show, what is it that you're being judged upon?
So they have like a list of criteria that you're judged on, and I don't know how many of these will make sense without me really being boring and explaining, but you have like symmetry. A lot of them are self-explanatory. You've got your overall size, symmetry, condition, and I think it gets overlooked a lot now, but things like your stage presence, but you have a posing routine. Now, it doesn't really hold that much weight as much as it used to, but I think it should. It was always a way for somebody to get, you're in a lineup of people who, have all worked hard, have all put the work in to get up there, but then you get a little minute on your own and you can do whatever you want and make that your minute. That used to be a way of people to express themselves, and I think that art of it kind of died off a little bit.
Has it?
Yeah, it doesn't get... I don't know whether it's too lazy. So I find a lot of people at shows now, considering it's such an important thing, being able to pose, a lot of people can't pose.
And because you're being judged on those criteria, do you know when you get there, are you able to look at someone else and say, I'm going to beat him, probably not going to beat him, or is it just down to such a range of discretion from the judges?
It works both ways. I've looked backstage and I'm not to be disrespectful, but I've looked at people and thought, oh my God, you're not in my class. Like, there's no way. And I look and I think, I wish your coach or someone at Eating would have told you not to say it. Not because of me, but just you're not of the level where you should be stepping up on stage at this level. At the same time, I've also done it where it turns out I've been much better than someone, but I've looked backstage and thought, I've got no chance. And then I've got that in my mind so what they do is they call out the people they want to see. So there could be 15 in a line, numbered, let's just say 1 to 15. And you always want to be the first in the first call out. So they will either call you out kind of in importance. So the ones they want to see will be called out first, or they will start at the bottom and work their way up, and then they'll shuffle around as they see fit. But your aim is to be in the middle of the first call out. That's kind of who they're looking at.
And obviously, you've won so many medals. We could be here all night talking about them. Do you, first of all, how do they communicate the results to you? Is it like a gold, silver, bronze situation?
Well, yeah, that is how it is. I spoke about this on the other podcast a couple of weeks back. Even that now, it used to have a whole element of like, I don't know, like again, I suppose it's not stage presence. It's like there is a word I can't think. So you go to a show and it's all everything's elaborate and like there's a real build up to it,
like ceremonial.
Yeah, it used to be a lot more like that. Some federations still do, and they have like the smoke and the background music going off and stuff. They always used to use an Earth, Wind and Fire song. I don't know if any of you are fans of Earth, Wind and Fire. There's a song in the Stone. It used to always get played, and I don't know if you know how it starts anyway, but it basically builds up, and they'd announce the top 6, so they'd be like, in 6th place, and someone would get called out, 5th place, 4th, and they'd time it in with this song, so by the time they were like, and the winner, and this song would drop, but like it was really fitting. And that was like, we used to look forward to that in the show. We used to laugh when it come on and stuff.
Do you know what? You're not a Liverpool fan, are you? You're not massive into
You'll never
footy?
find someone who's less arsed about footy.
All right, fair enough.
Couldn't care less. It doesn't.
I'm a big Liverpool fan, and just before the game starts at Anfield, I've never known why they play a song called "Thunderstruck" by AC/DC.
I know that. Yeah, well, a lot of the events play it anyway, don't they?
Oh, do they?
I've heard that in the UFC, but when we've been to UFC events, yeah.
What is it then? What is it about that kind of classic
people
rock,
hyped, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, loving it.
You'll have that before our Christmas night outside.
You should all be there going off a wild night out.
What's when you win then, or you're placed? How are you feeling at that point?
It's a bit of a rush of emotion because only you know the true extent of how hard you've worked, what you've been through, the highs, the lows. There's usually been a lot of sacrifice, a lot of falling out with people and distancing yourself to keep yourself focused. And then when it pays off, it doesn't matter how hard that is. It's like, you know what? Everything was worthwhile. And then it's weird, even like I've done shows and I've placed, like I've not won a show, I've been placed second or lower. And yeah, people, you could be dead last and people will still come up, oh, you look great, congratulations. But there's something different about winning. It's like people who don't know you will come up, oh, well done, So to actually win a show, there's nothing on the day that compares to it other than actually winning the show.
I can see why that would be the case. You mentioned this issue of Anticlimax earlier.
Yeah.
Is that something you've encountered in your career? And if so, when does it happen?
Yeah, quite a few times. The first time I ever really suffered with this, I won the World Championships as a junior back in 2013. And at the time, I was 20 years of age, very naive. Didn't realise this because you wouldn't. I thought life was going to be made for me. You've won the Worlds. Never expected to at the start. It wasn't what I set out to do. I qualified and was invited, so stuck with it another few weeks. I had like all the backing from the gym. Done it and thought, because I always wanted to move into PT and doing that full time. And I thought there's going to be a queue around the corner. Everyone's going to want to be PT now by Marcel. I thought, all the sponsorships are going to be fighting for me. And I very, very quickly learned that none of that was the case. Everyone I knew, like, well done, congrats, you look brilliant, oh my God, world champ, da-da-da-da-da. And once everyone had congratulated you, you no longer look the way you did a few weeks earlier. And it's funny actually, it wasn't at the time. There was a weekend, maybe, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks after the show. So it would have been June of 2013, middle of the summer. So yeah, really, June really is like the middle of the summer. It's probably light until about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And it was a Saturday, and for whatever reason now, I've had no plans. My mum's gone out with her mates. My brother had gone out wherever. My sister had gone out. And I sat in the house. This is how bad the Anticlimax can be. I'm not crazy, by the way. I sat in the house and thought, oh my God, I'm really lonely. Like, this is weird. This is like little 20-year-old me sitting there. And all it was that they'd gone out and had stuff to do and I didn't. And I was used to, for months now, everyone's being like, Marcel. And then now everyone's said, like, well, I was like, you're not a bodybuilder no more, you're just someone who trains.
But
And that hit us and I was like, but like to the point of crying, and I couldn't understand why I was so low.
Well, I would offer, I'm sure all that's right as well, but I would offer another view as well, insofar as that level of commitment and intensity you've got to show in the lead up to performing. When that exits for a period of time.
You've got no routine. You've got like,
and that can be low.
Yeah, it's like when you have a show coming up, you have a purpose. So, for example, during the lockdown, I know a lot of people suffered this year. So, something else. So, obviously, bodybuilding's not always the most healthiest sports for a number of reasons, which I don't need to delve into, but I got to a point where I wasn't feeling the best just in general within myself this year. There was nothing actually up. It was just, I think it was the lockdown, everything, life was taking its toll. And one of my mates, who is a doctor, had said, maybe think about getting your bloods done again and just see how you are. And I shut him down and said no. And the honest reason I said at the time, I said no. Right now, I'm putting my mental health before my physical health. If something was to show up now in my bloods that was basically, don't compete, I'll lose the plot, because right now, I've got a reason to get up at 6 a.m. every morning. I'm out at 6:30. I've got a day that's occupied and driven by this goal in the future. If someone takes that away from me now, I've honestly got no purpose and nothing to do right now, because I wasn't able to work. There was nothing else going on in any other area.
And we all need a purpose. And I'll go back to a point I said earlier about life's not meant to be easy. And I think if you don't have that purpose, people respond in different ways. Some people can go through the whole life without having goals and just sort of tick along. I would say to those people that if you've not got something to aim for, that is when physically, mentally, in terms of your motivation, it's when you can find yourself in a terrible rut. Yeah. And those people who have got a purpose can quite often cross-apply it in the future to different things. And I really want to get onto that, because I know you've got a lot more going on in your life other than just bodybuilding, and you've got other plans. Yeah. Because I believe the level of sacrifice and commitment you've shown, mate, you can cross-apply that purpose.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think being able to, because all success, it comes as a result of hard work, day in, day out. Being willing to work out of hours and not just clock off and go, I'll come back to that tomorrow. You've got to kind of be focused, have something in mind, and work like relentlessly and make it happen. And that's kind of everything you prove you can do by stepping on stage and doing well as a bodybuilder. So I suppose, yeah, if I was to apply that mindset, there's no reason why I couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? I can make it happen.
I believe so. Yeah. Let's come to that. I mean, just to reiterate the point you've made, I mean, check out Marcel's achievements, guys. Done phenomenally in terms of the medals you've won and the achievements you've made. Because I'm interested in finding more out about you rather than just going through medal by medal. Yep. I'll move it on, but I'd not to, for one moment, diminish your achievements, man. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, nice one.
I just want to ask you something else, which I think it's always interested me, is we've talked about the levels of sacrifice that bodybuilders make, and we've talked about how you're judged, how your success is assessed. And we know that, like many sports, bodybuilding has carried with it the reality and perhaps the perception as well that performance-enhancing supplements and drugs are used in order to achieve that success. I suppose the first question I wanted to ask you is, do you think in bodybuilding there's a level playing field in terms of how those sort of things are used and how people are judged on the basis of them?
It's probably one of the most level sports out there, because at least in what's known as untested or open bodybuilding, the chances are, I'm not saying outright everybody is using or taking or doing something, but the chances are, and I would say always, if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. And there's nobody there saying you can do this or only that, or you have to limit this. Not always a good thing, because, bodybuilding, we know it's not the healthiest of sports, but we know it's there, and there's nobody kind of saying, you can or can't do this. So, in terms of that, it's open to the individual. So in that sense, it's a level playing field.
But the impact on long-term health.
It does come at a cost, as we've seen more and more. This year's been a horrible year for bodybuilding. There's been a number of deaths. What I would say is, and I can say quite confidently without naming any particular sport, there's a lot going on in bodybuilding that is also going on in a lot of the bigger sports. the, I'm going to say Olympic or professional level, but because there's a lot of money invested in these things and these things generate a lot of money, it's kind of hush-hush. And I think that's one thing that keeps bodybuilding. If you're ever hoping to get into it to make money, you're an idiot, because you will never make money on the stage. You can make money through having been a bodybuilder, but there's no money, there's no big sponsorship or anything really worthwhile. I think probably because it's got the name, or it's got this association with steroids, and steroids are bad.
But even with that in mind, it seems to me that in a sport where you are judged so strictly on how you look, and if there's a way in which of pushing yourself to the next level by some sort of performance enhancement, and if you throw in the longer term possible financial incentives around things like post-athletics career, sponsorships, etc., what good does it do to give a very blanket prohibition message when human nature dictates that in those scenarios people are going to want to find the workarounds?
If there was no performance enhancing drugs in bodybuilding would be finished. And they sort of tried to take a stance on this. I might be off with my date here, I believe. So you've got the top competition in the world. I think it was either 1990 or 1991, where they've obviously had a few scares and decided we need to have this no drugs approach, and we'll start testing athletes in federations that are usually not tested. And I've got the footage of it at home, and the difference in quality of the physiques is massive. To the point where I look at it, me personally, it's why do you want to see average when obviously if we open the floodgates, we can really push what humans are possible of, and we can see something that really is wow, as opposed to something that you'd see in your local sports centre. Not to say that these physiques on that are that, but comparatively they're not the same. At the same time, though, this is the problem. As humans, we always want more. So I've been in attendance before at a tested federation. I've competed at one when I was younger, and it's not the same. It's, I don't know, you don't get that same thing. It's like saying, it's like, imagine going to a game of football, use football, that's your. Imagine we go to watch a game of football, but they can only walk.
Yeah, or there's me playing.
If they're only allowed to walk, and they're only allowed to make, say, 2 passes a minute.
Yeah.
It'd be a very slow, it wouldn't be the same game as what it is. And you're into it because of the level of athleticism involved. And do you know what I mean?
I do. And there's a bigger point here for me. I don't think prohibition of any form of drugs has ever worked. And the reason why I say that is 2 things. Number 1 is if alcohol was made unlawful tomorrow, would that make it more harmful than it is when it's legal? Of course it wouldn't. It's the same thing. You apply that same rationale to any drug and it becomes farcical, because you think to yourself, giving a prohibition message does not stop people who are minded to do so using any sort of substance. What it does, in fact, is it drives bad behaviours. Whereas if there was more of a nuanced message, whether that was around moderation, whether it was around using safely or using with a certain end game in mind, with certain testing involved, you then drive positive behaviours. So I've never really quite got what the benefit of prohibition of substances is. And I just think it sort of treats people as being very robotic, as if they can't function without that very clear left or right message, rather than a grey area in the middle, where it's like, well, look, you can do this, but only within a certain scope.
Yeah, and that's probably where bodybuilding is at the minute. People know abuse goes on, and even amongst the community, it's frowned upon. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's kind of the grey area.
Yeah.
We're not saying to people, take more and more. But when people do, it's frowned upon.
It becomes clear.
Yeah. That is the problem that's with it.
And that's a sanction in itself, isn't it? In terms of how you're perceived by your peers and your competition. And that probably works better than there just being a rule written down somewhere that you shouldn't do X and you should do Y.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's move to the future. So first of all, let's keep going on bodybuilding. How old are you now, mate? You late 20s?
Yeah, 29.
So what does the longevity?
Downhill from 30.
What's the longevity of a career of bodybuilder? When do people usually knock it on the head?
It's one of those. It's what you want to make of it. We actually have categories over 40s, over 50s. Some federations have over 60s.
Right.
For me, I plan to be out of bodybuilding by 35 because I see the long-term effects. Well, for the negative long-term side effects happening more and more now. Now, obviously, there's risk with anything. Such what something could happen to me bodybuilding related next week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously, everything I've done up until this point now has contributed to that. But I think the longer you stay into it, the more chance there is of seeing the negatives. And again, even though it's given such a bad name, unlike alcohol or recreational drug use or anything else, it's very, very easy to say I've had my career out of it now and I'm done with it and I'm past that.
And what about then in the time you have got left? Do you have any goals that you're focused upon? And if
so there's still a list of goals I would like to achieve. I look at them as being kind of small goals, one after another, rather than just saying I have this ultimate end goal of achieving what is actually the end goal. So where I'm at now, I would like to turn professional with it. Should that happen, I would like to be able to say I've stepped on a professional stage and competed.
That's like Mr. Olympia, is it? That type of thing?
That's like the top.
Is that the pinnacle, is it?
Yeah. So leading up to that, obviously that being the end goal, I would say I would like to compete at a professional show. There's always the thing of being able to have won a professional show, which would then qualify you for the Mr. Olympia. Being able to say I've competed at the Mr. Olympia, and I've always said I'm not bothered about placing with that. You'd have people who are essentially chasing a goal that's unobtainable. Realistically, I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia because there is people out there far superior as far as genetics go to where I'm at.
Right.
And I'm fine with that. But what I would like to do is qualify for it and be able to go to it, compete at it, get me tracksuit with my name and experience that press conference with the best in the world and be able to say, I started out as a little 17-year-old. The first show I actually done was down in Cumbria in the lakes. I'd done this show in 2010. I actually progressed through the ranks, went all the way to the top and actually competed at the Olympia. Not many people get to say that, especially from the UK.
That's right, because it's quite US-centric, isn't it? Is it always in the US?
Unfortunately, yeah, the Mr. Olympia is always in the US. Or it never used to be, but I'm going to say for the last maybe 25 years, it's always been in the US.
So that's a clear advantage.
The US, yeah, especially with the restrictions and the times we're living under now. A lot of big names have been denied visas for various reasons, or have kind of had to go from one country to another, just to get into and avoid restrictions, which is silly. Traveling, especially air travel, is one of the worst things you can do when your body is running low on you've been dieting. A lot of people suffer with water retention. Mm-hmm. Your heart's already under a lot of stress because you're carrying a lot of weight. You're using performance enhancing drugs. To be then flying in a pressurized air cabin on top of that is a recipe for disaster. How people actually manage to do this, I don't know.
And it's a disadvantage compared to the
someone
other
who's
athletes.
able to just do
Roll
a couple of hours of drive and then chill out for a week leading up to it.
Yeah. Now you've got your own family gym. That's training station 2.
Yeah.
And you're a personal trainer in the gym.
I never leave the place. I'm in there like 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. most days.
But you're not just training other bodybuilders, are you?
No, to be fair, it's such a niche. I think I'd go broke trying to train just bodybuilders. I generally tend to I will train anybody. And in particular, anybody who's willing to have a good go and work hard, because I don't need to waste someone's time who's not actually really there wanting to improve their life for the better. And in the same time, they don't need to waste my time by asking me for something that they're not willing to put their side of the hard work in. But yeah, I've trained athletes. I've trained a number of athletes from, like, say, sporting backgrounds, football, boxing, MMA, wrestling, like pro wrestling, believe it or not. And I have helped a lot of other bodybuilders out. But generally, it's everyday people now. That could just be someone who, I've had an injury and I'd like to get myself a little bit more confidence in the gym again after what's gone on. It could be someone who says, look, I'm at a point, I'm not happy, I need to lose weight. Another thing, there could be someone who's actually underweight and say, you know, I need to learn how to eat correctly, want to build up a little bit of strength. Sometimes it is honestly just confidence. People underestimate the power of the gym, and that's not like everybody walking around like big gym heads. Some people, a lot of the people, in fact, who come to our gym are there as like it's a social aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a conversation actually I had this week. I'm forgetting now what actually led us on to this, but someone was saying, he doesn't really do anything in here. And I'm like, yeah, but think about it. This is someone who's in this gym every day. We'll do a few little sets, probably neither here nor there, but most other people who are, say, in the 50s, 60s, or a lot of other people are in the pub. Their equivalent socialising for 2 hours a day is in the pub having a few pints. Now, couldn't it be much worse?
Well, it could, and the other thing is, to have some me time is a positive.
We have a laugh in the gym. It's a great atmosphere, and it is because I don't know what you've not been to the gym, but a lot of people, at least a long time ago, were under like this impression that like a proper or a bodybuilding gym like ours was full of gym heads and I couldn't go in there. They'd all laugh. Bodybuilders are still a minority in the gym like ours, and now so we've opened the strength and conditioning side as well. Them kind of classes appeal to a more varied thing of people. So as more girls and women and older people and just people who otherwise would never set foot in our side, they're coming to the gym. It's all shutters and it's open, and the two sides, it sort of blurs the lines between, and they'll come through our side to go to changing rooms or buy a bottle of water, and they see it for what it really is. The mix of people that we've got in there now is great, and you could have, at any one time, you could have people from, say, maybe 5 decades, as far as the age range goes, all having a laugh with each other as though we're all mates in school together. Which I don't think many gyms you would get that.
And if people are watching and they're interested in working with you, can they contact you on like your Insta or via the...
Yeah, anyone who wants to work with us, give us a shout on my Instagram, or there is actually a link in my... I sound like one of these influencers. If you click the link in my Instagram, but yeah, there is actually a link. It'll take you to a form. It's a short form. Fill it out. I'll get the notification once that's filled out, and you can get in touch with us that way.
And I suppose if anyone is looking for a chicken and blended water influencer, then Marcel's your man. I mean, I don't know what the market is in that.
You're the only person I've convinced to try that, and I don't think I'll be pushing it on to anybody else either.
Because you do some work online as well, don't you? So I guess if people are watching and they're from a different part of the country, then that shouldn't restrict them in reaching out to you.
It's just online coaching. I probably don't push it as much as I should, purely because I'm not busy with my in-person stuff, and I always thought if one dropped, I'd push the other, but fortunately enough, I've not had that problem. I've kind of one stayed consistent. With the online, someone may not always be able to get into the gym the times that I'm able to offer. Somebody could be, only free of an evening when the gym's shut. So essentially what it is, I would set out all the same goals, the same plans, food, training, as I would in person. But as opposed to me actually taking someone through the workout, they can go away and do it themselves. Something else within that I'd like to mention that I'm going to hopefully be working on in the coming weeks as well is creating a library of footage. So let's say, for example, you came to us for a workout plan, and I've sent the plan over and you look and go, right, yeah, that's fine, but I don't understand what this is or what this is. So I say, right, okay, I'll send you the video over, and I'll have a library of footage readily available to anyone I'm coaching. So you could say to me, I don't understand how to bench press. And what's this bicep curl? I know they're the two most basic options, and I'm assuming you do know what they are, but I can send the video over rather than, obviously, there's no other way of me there's no better way of me communicating that to you. I send you a video detailing exactly what it is I'm doing and any adjustments or anything, basically teaching points on the exercise. So now you've got a copy of that, and it's like, right, okay, I now know what I can do. So you can go ahead and do that, or you feel confident to do that in a different gym.
Because that technique and confidence is key to getting good results, isn't it?
Yeah. There's more to it than just going in and moving weight for me to be.
Let's talk about what we were touching on earlier about you cross-applying your commitment and your sacrifice to a different purpose. Have you ever given any thought to business at all? Yeah, I've had a go at a couple of little things. I enjoy the learning process of jumping into something new. I've had to go at a meal prep business.
I hated it. Yeah, it wasn't. It was born out of lockdown. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was a lot more hands-on than I planned for it to be. And it was that side of things. I'm used to cooking food, but plain food. I'm catering to me. I've not got to consider anybody else. So when there was that side of things, I grew to hate it. And we no longer run that anyway. That came to a stop a while back. I still do have. I've just fell into this trap of not pushing it as much as I should. A clothing business as well, it's a gym, fitness, loungewear, just an everyday gym wear brand. That's something I'm looking to have moving again over the coming weeks.
I was so interested in your comment there about this issue of new things, because that really resonates with me. And if you're in a situation, if anyone's in a situation where they feel that they aren't achieving their potential, that they've not got that purpose, or even if they're just not feeling great, my opinion is looking to do new things can be really rewarding. It's funny because in terms of when I decided to do the podcast, because we've done pretty well in business, I wanted something where I was a beginner again. I wanted something where I was like a bit of a novice again, where I was learning, where I was being challenged, where I was getting loads of things wrong, failing, succeeding, getting better, a bit of a step back. And you feel better when you achieve hard things.
Yeah. Rather than walking into something you know how to do and going, right,
let's keep doing it.
Yeah,
every
just
day.
do that again, different settings, but same thing. I get that, yeah.
And I would recommend it to anyone. Do something new, do something tough. And if you fail, I don't think you'll view it as a disaster. If you succeed or part succeed, you will feel great. And I think when
I like to try and do that with little things that I've done, just little daily tasks at the minute. Again, on my Instagram, I was learning how to do the splits.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
I've actually, until I hurt my back, I've not stretched since that point. That was something I was working on, and I know I'll achieve that where I'm able to just do it fluently. Another one, I don't think that I've looked, there's not actually much footage of it. At one point I was learning how to ride a unicycle. Because when have you ever seen someone ride a unicycle? And there's another one, I'm hoping, I won't say it just yet, but there's another thing I'm going to at least have a little go at, purely because a lad that I train now offers it, he coaches. So he does like PT, similar to PT, but it's something I've never had a go over. I'm very intrigued, so I'm going to probably give it a go in the new year.
Is it slacklining?
No.
Do you know what? When I started this podcast, I swore I was going to get a bodybuilding unicyclist on, and now
you know what?
It's
box tick.
Oh, mate, we're going to have to wrap it up. I know I could really sit here for much longer talking to you, Marcel. It's been absolutely superb hearing your story, and I know everyone is really going to resonate with the challenges that you've applied yourself to, with the outcomes you've achieved, with the success you've had, but also with what you've learned along the way. And like I say, we're going to have all your own socials on ours. We're going to have details of the gym. And I've really enjoyed talking to you, man.
Yeah, it's been good.
Hopefully next time we won't be drinking blended chicken and water.
Nobody's going to top that.
No.
I will put the message out there to anybody who's going to be featured. Please try and top that, because I'd like to see it.
Oh, this is going to be a running joke now.
You come in with the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, come back and see us.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
meantime, I'm going to get it right once. It's Marcel Vormawah Jonas.
Oh, no. You had one opposite. Marcel Vormawah Jonas.
Marcel Vormawah Jonas.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Finish on a high.
Thanks for coming. Amazing, mate. That was superb.